So yeah, I'm Dave Gomes. As Ricardus was saying, thank you. I've been making games for close to 20 years, but almost always as a developer. So this is kind of an interesting panel for me to be part of. I've always kind of known some stuff about funding, and most of the projects I've worked on have mostly been with publishers or a very specific type of funding. So this is really more information about different ways to do funding and to get started with your teams and your studios. And hopefully you guys also have a lot of questions and are as interested as I am in that. So yeah, and we have Per-Arne Lundberg, who's from Sweden. He's the, I guess, founder of the Swedish Game Incubator as well as Swedish Game Arena. Has worked at a number of different places, including Embracer. At the moment, you're working on Bonfire Gameworks, which we just talked briefly before this. It sounds like is focused on mostly growing teams and is forward-looking, also looking at ways to be sustainable and growing, which is really interesting. Maybe you'd like to share what you're currently looking at or focused on, just to expand on that.
Yeah, I spent my career in helping startups, basically from the student scene. Last 8 years, I've been working in the Embracer ecosystem and with Amplifier Game Invest, where we've also done investments and acquisitions for larger studios, older, more mature studios. But my passion lies with student projects.
Great, thank you. And next we have Greg Banas, who's from Poland, as part of Erebor Capital, which is more direct funding VC at all stages for development for teams, so early stages all the way to IPO. And again, a different sort of funding vehicle here, which is really nice for the panel. Would you maybe like to share some things that you're looking at the moment or focused on?
So we're focused on PC, console, handheld games. We don't really do mobile, we don't do crypto, we don't do all the weird stuff that's not bringing entertainment to players. We believe, in a solid, basis for the players to enjoy. So, and also, like we're coming from Poland, so that's the country where the PC console is the stronger part rather than mobile. We do have a few mobile companies, but they're doing okay, but not great. So, we're tapping into the PC console market. We're early stage investors, so we can do all the stages, but now we tend to focus on very early stage, including the inception of the company, to address also some things, that can happen which are not product related, like founders fighting, who should be the captain on the ship, or, like how should we split the shares, or what happens if one of the founders leaves very early on in the company development.
All the fun stuff, yeah. Sounds good. Cool, thanks. And next we have Ilya Abugov. Hopefully I'm saying that well. And also no stranger to Lithuania, as I understand. You've been here a few times.
I lived here for a little bit.
Sounds good. Currently US-based and running Helika Ventures, which is quite well-funded game accelerator there, which has access to a lot of partner funding. Again, a different kind of vehicle. So nice to see a few different aspects of funding represented on the panel here. Again, maybe you'd like to share what you're up to and focused on at the moment.
Yeah, I can say a few words. So we really do two things that I run at Helika. We run different kind of gaming accelerators, and they're really kind of program focused. So we'll run accelerators that will be kind of either technology focused or platform focused. We're also looking, we want to start doing regional accelerators as well. And so kind of watch for our announcements, I guess, and there may be a program that fits what you're doing. And then we're also building what we're calling a publishing engine. It kind of fits our model where we started doing kind of product work to kind of help those studios at an earlier stage kind of know what to do once they have a build. But yeah, that's us for now. Sounds
great, thanks. Cool, so I'm the type of person I like to start with maybe more the bad news first and get to the good stuff. So maybe it's maybe something people are talking about, but it's no surprise. Like funding has in the recent years been through a turbulent patch. Things have been changing. A lot of the discussions I've had personally have been about what is it changing towards. It's kind of exciting that it is changing. but maybe you'd like to cover the things that have changed significantly where, there might be former assumptions or ideas about what funding looks like the past years that have now changed significantly, and some avenues that have maybe closed or have morphed into something different. Yeah, maybe.
I can start.
Sure, go for it. Yeah.
I think the biggest change was probably even not so much this year, I think, because a lot of the funding announcements are delayed, right? So us seeing or not seeing something is a product of what happened even maybe 12 months ago or so. But I think one of the biggest things was kind of Series A funding stopped appearing. Like there was an expectation for all of the COVID and post-COVID studios that raised that there's going to be additional funding down the line. There was a lot of studios that came out with kind of AAA backgrounds, and they effectively tried to build AAA production pipelines. And that additional funding wasn't there for them. And so, studios that raised 10, 20, 40 million dollars found they were 100, 150 million dollars short of where they needed to be to complete their games. And so that is now catching up. We're now kind of finally in the mentality that indie means indie, and you need kind of an indie budget for what you're trying to do. So I think that has been the biggest kind of change, but that's not really this year. It's kind of been kind of building up for a few years, I'd say.
I have a very specific question based on previous experience of mine. I worked on a project, maybe similar, AAA aspirations, where part of the model was increasing, aspirations at these key milestones or key funding points. Is that really, is that a red flag these days in terms of teams that are kind of building to keep the funding party going,
I mean, the thing is that it's a tricky balance because it really matters who you're trying to raise from. I think if you're trying to raise from a publisher versus if you're trying to raise from a VC, the expectations of what people want to see and the proof that you're succeeding is very different. For VCs, typically, you want to show a big project vision. Well, not so much project, a company vision, right? You're not going to see studios, VCs necessarily invest in a game. They want to invest in a studio. And so they want to see, a vision maybe several years down the line of you becoming a Blizzard or an EA. Because, that's a separate discussion, but there's only so many exit paths for a VC. For publishing, that vision and narrow scope is a little bit different. And so it's important to understand who you're raising from in order to understand how your vision needs to grow as well as you're going for those next stages. But I think what's more important is the proof that you're actually on track for that bigger vision. The demand for that is much increased these days, right? And so the demand for true Series A funding right now, like what you have to prove in order to get that money is very, very different than it was a few years ago.
Great.
Maybe if I can add something here, it really depends where the VC is from. There are particular markets that are more easy when it comes to funding for the VCs and easier paths for exits. So for example, both Poland and Sweden, we enjoy, companies going public. So that's an easier exit opportunity than, for example, VC from US, which needs to actually do 100 times, X. That for me, for example, I had the deals in the past that due to the use of company going public made me 30 times cash on cash. And that's fairly cool, So it depends really where the investor is coming from, because the expectation can be different. For me, I can plan IPO for every company I invest in. It only depends, if they make great product or not. But for example, in some, let's say, locations, you can have a great company, but you have no opportunity of easy exit, and you cannot plan acquisition. You cannot plan then in 3 years' time someone comes, especially after Embracer stopped, doing that, because a few years back, actually, every Polish studio, had an offer probably on their desk.
I really like the point also you mentioned about the teams. I think maybe we could talk about that a little bit. I know, Per-Arne, this is quite important for you. Investing in teams as opposed to investing in games and kind of growing from that point. What are some of the key things you look for, or what are the things you focus on with teams early as you're investing?
Yeah, I think it's similar to anybody. I think team is the most important part of if it's a startup or a more mature company. But of course, the earlier you onboard, and especially in a smaller project, you want to have a cohesive team that covers all the discipline and that it's balanced. So if you're 6 developers and you have 4 designers and 1 artist and 1 coder, that's not a balanced team, and that will lead to problems. And to what the gentleman here on my left earlier said, that the difference in the market right now is that we are hammering down more on things that might be a little bit more red flag today than it was 3-4 years ago. So I think cohesive team, that's one small team, at least for me. If your core game loop isn't proved, whatever that means, but that it has the stickiness, that it's fun, that it's entertaining, you shouldn't be thinking about expanding your team or bringing on more people just because you can unlock VC funding, because that's not how typically you do it. You keep the team small. Ideally, you will have someone who can have the creative leadership among these founders, somebody who can see it through, because inevitably you will have setbacks, you will have delays, you will have to cut, you have to rescope, you will have to raise more money, and during that process, it's important to have somebody who's holding on to the vision of the game.
Great. I think it's really, I'm seeing a trend here, maybe you guys can confirm, like there's no silver bullets with this, right? There's no, oh, if we just do this as a team or a studio, then we're going to get funding, or it's going to make us more attractive or lead more to success. It seems to be a well-balanced approach is key. I think for a lot of indie teams, I think they're not sure exactly what the funding amounts even look like, or what it is they have access to. So in terms of like ticket sizes or anything like that, like has a lot of that been changing as well over the previous years, or what can people expect going into some of these discussions?
So, you know, like during the COVID, the tickets were far greater than now. You know, it's like during the COVID craziness, as I call it, you know, it's like you could get pretty much any amount of money, you know, if you showed a nice pitch deck, you know. It's like in the region, you know, there was the teams from like Tencent or NetEase, you know, with the already prepared investment agreement, you know, for $3 million. Just put your company name and sign at the bottom,
right.
And you're getting that. So, you know, but if we look from today's perspective, all these companies that got this money, you know, they actually crumbled upon their own weight, you know, like most of them didn't even release the product. So the money was not the solution. Money actually became the problem. Well, money will not fix the bad team, but it can spoil the good team, you know, if there's too much cash. Because then you go into building too big of a team too early before you actually learn that, you know, doing your own studio is not just doing the product, it's actually, you know, creating the company in a way. And that's what is too hard for a lot of people, you know. You need to have a certain personality aspects of entrepreneur, you know. You need to keep the budget in check, actually, you know. It's not about, you know, raising as much as you can and then, you know, just running away from the cash burn every month, but actually making a game that can make enough profits, you know, to at least cover itself, or actually make more profits, because that's the point, you know. You don't want to be in the same place 3 years from now. And if you look at the data from Steam reports themselves, you know, in 2023 report, only like 500 games made over $2 million net. If they use like 3 million before the commission, so it's easy to count. In Steam's report 2024, only like over 200 games made $1 million in first month after release. So if you're going the budget higher than that, you need to know that you're competing in the most competitive league, you know, and those numbers, they include AAA. So if you're in the studio, you need to, you know, be aware if you're going with a budget bigger than those numbers, who are you competing with and how much revenue actually you need to generate.
Yeah. Oops. And just doubling down on what Ilya said earlier, I think it's important to know who you are pitching to and what you're pitching for. So on stage, we lack one of the main resources. We lack a publisher, right? And if normally a startup, you I would think you have either going for some kind of investment. That means that you leave a little bit of your equity or your shares on the table for an investment. That means that investor is interested in exactly what Ilya is talking about. What is the larger vision of the studio, not the game per se. And if you're talking to a publisher, then it's about the game. And I think that this might be absolutely crystal clear for everybody here, but still today, out of 100 pitches that I get, 50 are wrongly proposed. They mix up a presentation towards publishing and VC, and it's different because the one thing is about tying the vision to a game, and then the budget has to be credible for that game, and the revenues, the business case has to be credible for that. And if you're pitching for a VC, then it's a different story. Then the game is one part of your journey to reach the bigger vision. And then there is also, again, the word cohesive comes into play. What will separate you? Why should an investor be interested in building your studio if you don't have a vision of what kind of games, plural, that you will build to reach your end goal, right? And in terms of ticket sizes, I think that all ticket sizes are still on the table. It's just that you need to be much more prepared today and come with more metrics than you used to do just a couple of years ago. Because at that point, we were in consolidation in the market, flooded with money. People needed to write checks in order to clear out their funds, right? To have them worked out. So I think you can raise a ticket of $10,000, $100,000, $1 million, and much more. But for each tier, the requirements in your pitch deck will increase. It will be harder and harder to unlock bigger budgets. And this is also true for smaller players like me, right? I'm used to invest in smaller studios, smaller ticket size. But I also need to be more wary of where I put my bets, because money comes with a cost today. The thing, working capital or interest rate, messed up our industry because it was free a couple of years ago. Actually, not free. It came with a premium.
Yeah, Ilya?
I would just add, I think it's important to understand what stage you're at as well, and then kind of who you're pitching to, and that cohesive story. I fully agree with, but I think you need to be true to what you're trying to do. Well, I've seen a lot of pitches where the studio is asking for 100K from a fund that does minimal deployments at like 500K to $1 million. Like that's just not going to happen. Not because you're a bad studio, it's a misfit. And so you need to be aware of who you're going to, and then also what your story is, right? Like if you're telling a VC that you're building an MMORPG and this is going to take 4 years and you're asking for 100K, this is not going to click. Like that math doesn't work. And I've seen that too. I think one of the big changes has been, I fully agree, like all of the tickets are still on the table, and we still have even accelerator programs that dole out really large tickets. I think the challenge is to kind of recalibrate your mindset in terms of like the proof points that you need to bring, and also the valuations changed, right? Like 21, 22, like it was not out of like this world to see $100 million seed stage valuation for VCs. That's not it's not really something, not investment advice, but that's not something we're seeing now.
Right.
And so you need to kind of understand what world we're living in right now.
Okay. Maybe that's a good transition to a topic I feel like we need to touch on, AI in general, right? So AI, a lot of funding has been moving towards AI. So funding that used to be in games has maybe, moved into that as an arena. In terms of AI as a requirement or as a proof point or as a red flag, like there's a lot of questions or maybe uncertainty, I guess, as things change about how important AI is for a studio or not, or I guess I'm just curious if you guys have like opinions or thoughts on that. It's maybe too early to say what the exact best advice here would be. Yeah, Greg.
I mean, the industry is used to using tools, you know, it's like we had engines, we have different plugins, you know, it's not like, you know, the industry is shocked, you know, or they shouldn't be. There are certain areas where the AI significantly already improves the production process, like, sorry to say that, but concept artists, you know, will have very hard life, you know, in coming years, because you don't need like a team of 5 people, you know, doing the concept for a month. You know, you need one person with a talent who will do that work, you know, in a week using AI, and will bring you many more options. So the thing is, it's already happening. I've seen that, for example, the teams we're talking to can show us like how the, for example, fake trailer will look like, you know, what's the feeling of the game. We don't need to base on like, this is gonna be the battle system from this game, you know, the feeling of the look will be from this game, and, you know, the management of the team will look like this. You know, we can actually see that before any work is done, and you can test it, you can see how it works, you know, you can get the feeling, you know, if the vision of the game that you have is picking up. So AI is here, it is here to stay, but you need to learn how to use it wisely.
Right. So again, just connecting those two ideas, it sounds like for teams, the requirements are getting higher because it's just so much easier, I guess, to be so complete or show more about the vision and what things could be, even from an early stage. Yeah. Okay, great.
I think that what would turn me off is somebody tweaking in AI in every second sentence or in every slide. There are a certain herd mentality at the moment in the industry or in the investment scene or financial market where it's a hype word. It's nothing else. And there are huge access to, I mean, we're talking about trillions of dollars going into it. Where it comes into play for you guys, I think it's more a matter of showing some kind of AI maturity and readiness. Where will you use it? And can that be credible in your presentation? Concept generation, procedural content generation, NPC behavior, automated QA. These are all things that have already been implemented and used for years. A good developer should embrace that and work with that, because that means a team of 4 can deliver at the cadence in the early phases as a team of 8. And that means a better investment for me and a more secure position for me, because I'm working with people who are actually onboarding AI. There has been like a stigmatized discussion about AI. It will kill the industry, it'll take away all the creativity, artists will go bonkers. And that will not just happen over a day or a week, it will take decades. But we need to use it, and we need to use it as a tool, which the coder have been doing for what, 20 years?
I'm going to take a slightly more cautious approach to AI,
Okay.
just because of exactly what you said. Like, the thing that scares me when I see is the quote-unquote like hashtag salads, where, you know, people try to like line up in a sentence all of the things that are supposed to be trending in the moment. And but the thing that I'm most cautious about is expectations, both from kind of the developer side and the investor side. I think in 23 there was kind of this kind of hype that in 6 months AI is going to take us to this magical place where everybody can develop their own game, and it's, you know, it's all going to change. We're in towards the end of 25. No. I mean, it's a very useful tool, and if you understand how to use it, in which places to use it, it kind of changes how quickly and how kind of nimble you are. But at the same time, kind of what I look for is, do people understand the underlying nuances, right? Like, you know, I'm super excited, for instance, about NPCs becoming more intelligent, right? But when a team talks to me about that, I want to know if they understand the underlying cost of running computations that are much more advanced. And so if you are using AI, show that you actually understand what you're using, and you understand where you're using it, and what kind of benefits it gives you, right? Because studios that come in and say, well, you know, AI is going to allow us to do this and that in 6 months because AI is just going to improve and then things will magically happen. You know, we've seen over the years, magic doesn't happen on its own. We kind of have to will it into existence. And so that that scares me a little bit. We are seeing really big rounds around AI infrastructure in gaming right now. I think not too long ago, there was a team that raised over 100 million in their seed round. I wish that team all the best, but you know, we've seen quite a few kind of hype cycles in gaming over the past 5 years. They were dangerous.
When you say infrastructure, what specifically do you mean?
I believe they're training kind of foundational models to kind of understand kind of gamer behavior. So anything that, basically anything where you're actually training around LLMs would be kind of considered infrastructure in my view. But then there's a lot of stuff that affects production pipelines. So anything around art, anything around coding, there's quite a few different teams right now working around co-pilots that are specifically around gaming. And I think it's super cool, but the question is, you know, how fast and how impactful in a short amount of time.
Great. Thank you very much. I think for this audience, I just maybe want to spend a bit of time also talking about what a journey with investment could look like that's different than publishing. I think when I look at the development scene here, there are a lot of indie teams. I can see a couple even in the audience that I know. Maybe just for the sake of them, for your specific vehicles, maybe you could talk about what that journey might look like for them, how they can maybe get started or start to do some research or meet people. Like what journey would that look like with you specifically? And then, yeah, just give people maybe the option to think about like if they did go down this route instead of maybe self-publishing or some other grants or government programs, how does this future look different for them? What can they expect? Yeah. Greg? Yeah.
All right. So for us, we usually focus on the teams which are already experienced in the industry. So the founders we're usually talking to are 35 to 45 years old. So, you know, they actually reached a certain level in the bigger companies and they knew that they hit the glass ceiling, you know. They're never going to be on the same level like original founders. And what it means in practice, they're going to be like salary people or they need to do something on their own, you know. If they want like their life to be changed, you know, and I've seen a number of companies over the years actually, you know, spinning off from the bigger companies, meaning not officially spinning, but people just leaving and establishing their companies, like, for example, Creepy Jar with their Green Hell, you know, leaving the Techland, the maker of Dying Lights, and, you know, creating a successful game, but also, you know, changing totally their life when it comes to their personal wealth. So, you know, that's, let's say, the most popular targets we have as a team. What I want to see, for example, when someone is pitching me, is they know what they're doing. Meaning, like, I can say like 70% of the pitches I'm seeing, you know, the basic math done on the data from the pitch deck itself, like, you know, the forecasted sales, you know, the reference title sales, when you know, do the math, like, okay, do the math on the price, the potential volume of sales, deduct the discounts, Steam commission, and so on and so forth. You know, the easy ones that you can foresee, and the math doesn't work here. You know, it's like, for me, it's like a huge, at least orange flag, if not red, that someone, you know, doesn't know, like, this is a business that actually needs to make money. And another thing is having close to zero research on the reference titles, which might not have worked. For example, we were talking with the team who tried doing a co-op game quite similar to what Overcooked was doing, you know. And in their pitch, like, okay, we want to improve this, this, and that. And if I look personally, you know, on the, let's say, the games that were not that successful and wanted, you know, to, let's say, be in the direction of Overcooked, they were exactly the things that player hated, you know, like making the, for example, the space, you know, bigger, you know, what it meant, like the characters are smaller, and, you know, the player disliked because, okay, we cannot, you know, see them properly, we can't do the task, or overcomplicating with atmospheric effects. And the thing is, you know, like, analysis of those games that were not extreme successes is the cheapest prototype, because it costs you, I don't know, a couple of dollars to buy them, because usually they're on huge discounts. And for me, it shows that you know what you're doing, that you're based on the data. So the math and the analysis and knowing what players want is like very important for me to actually start talking with someone.
So a strong connection or passion to specifically what's being made is super important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Per-Arne? Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
So I've been on the VC side, but now that I'm working on the accelerators, we come in earlier. And so kind of the requirements still, you need to validate the team, right? Like that's the first, second, third, and the first 100 lines of what I'm checking is the team. And one of the things that, everybody wants to see past success, but I think one of the things we care about the most is how do you actually function as a team, right? Like what have you done together? Because, at an early stage, in a kind of artistic, passionate project, you're gonna fight, you're gonna have disagreements, I want to see that you've done all of that before you got to me and you know how to work through it.
Yep.
The other thing is I want to see that there is a build, right? Like, yes, I don't expect a vertical slice, but there needs to be something that I can test. And I want to see that you're coming with something, because an accelerator should help you kind of work through your hypotheses. It should help you test things. That's what we're there for. But if you have nothing there to be worked on to begin with, it's very hard to help that studio at that point. Like you need to have a build. And then it does help that they need to understand as a studio that, they need to listen, right? Not everybody wants to listen, not everybody wants to be helped, and I respect that. If you have your own path and you believe in it, fine. But if you're coming to an accelerator, you need to be open-minded and you need to be willing to quantitatively test things. And that last bit's very important. Like one of the things we do in our accelerators, we give people our SDKs so that, they can see product metrics as they're going through the accelerator. Like you need to, when you test hypotheses, it can't be like, oh, this looks like it worked out, or like this didn't work out. Like there need to be numbers behind these things so that you can keep yourself honest, right? So that you can throw out the bad ideas and hone in on the good ideas. But the team needs to be ready for that. If you can't help those who don't want to be helped, and
Right.
so
Yeah, so being curious and being willing to learn, I guess, and willing to grow and maybe accept or lean into some of the ways, like the approaches you're describing, that's really great insight. Per-Arne, for you?
I like to be early. I mean, I like to be part basically of the foundation of the company. I think I lean into what Ilya is saying, that I want to work with people with big ears. I used a phrase over like 25 years that if you try to put competence on a scale, you will have people who are unaware of their incompetence, people who are aware of their incompetence, people who are aware of their competence, and people who are unaware of their competence. I want to work with the people who are aware of their incompetence, people who needs help and understands that they need help. The other ones apply anywhere else. And I'm extremely active. I'm part of the team. That's what I want to be. I want to be helpful. I want to offload you with stuff that I know. I don't want to do the things that you know. And then I would also like to say it's like bringing on an investor, an owner of your company, is a lifetime commitment for that company. It's easier to get divorced, by far, than pushing out a shareholder from a company. So choose who you want to go to bed with in that sense. And in some areas, it might be better to take on a publisher. But if you want longer support and commitment than just for the duration of one game, then it's equity, and then it's a shareholder, and somebody who will be an active one. That's my road.
I think that's a really, really awesome point. For a while, it was kind of somewhat discussed that when you have an interview with an investor, we ask a lot of questions, but typically at the end, there's a point where, like, do you have any questions for us? And I really like the studios that actually do. It's important for you to understand who you are going business with outside of just the money. And if you don't care, then that's a red flag for me.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. This has been amazing. I'm still really curious what the thoughts are here, maybe on how things are looking for the next couple years. we've talked a little bit around it, but if you could just maybe mention one or two things that you think are going to be really important to focus on moving forward in the coming years. Greg? Yeah.
I would say, you know, the trend I see continuing are smaller teams, up to 10 people, you know, doing really
Smaller
like
teams, yeah.
great games. You know, it's like, for some reason, in the recent years, the most selling games from Poland, from the small studios, are city builders, and a lot of them selling with the hooded horses. So and all of them done in a budget of $1 million, $1.5 million to $2 million, you know, so it's doable. Like, there are millions of copies sold already for Against the Storm, and didn't stop them, you know, their budget and the size of the team didn't stop the game from becoming an enormous success. So I would recommend, you know, like to decide for a smaller team, because that's where the funding is more available. I would dare to disagree that all the tickets are there, because, you know, in my opinion, the tickets for the budgets of over 2 million disappeared completely, you know. There were the budgets, you know, that you could get like 17 millions, you know, like 2 years ago. But now, that's like a dead zone. You know? So, you know, I am seeing the teams trying to find like 5 million, 4 million, 7 million, and trying to do that for the last 2 or 3 years, and that's nothing happening, even with the names from the really successful studios in the past. So I would say, just to wrap up, don't overdo with the budget, go with the reasonable scope, don't overwork yourselves, show it that it's doable, don't overpromise on those budgets, you know. If you can design the game with the early access in mind, but early access meaning like a complete fun game, not unfinished build because you run out of cash, then, you know, that's something that might be interesting, showing, you know, what you want to do, what you want to achieve, and how it actually applies what you see and what players like.
Thanks.
I think the kind of the big overarching term for me for the near future is going to be engineered virality. I think that one of the big questions all the time as you're coming in is, you know, you can validate that a game is going to get built to a certain extent, right? The team is good, they'll build the game. The big question then is, like, that's only part of the road. I think a lot of studios think of that as the achievement, like that's what they need to do, but that's just the beginning. Can you publish the game? And I think self-publishing and kind of building the game to have viral components is what, you know, people are starting to look at more and more. I think we had 1 or 2 hits where it was considered a happy accident, but I think now we're starting to see certain blueprints in terms of how direct-to-consumer works. And you want to start seeing that a studio, as they're building their game, is thinking about that from the very beginning, because that impacts your ability to then publish that game on a budget. And I think that is a kind of almost a bigger challenge and a bigger risk than almost anything else. You can help a studio kind of build the game, but if the game is not engineered for virality, it's very hard to do publishing on a smaller budget when the time comes for it.
Very insightful, yeah. And I guess I'm anecdotally just seeing a lot more smaller titles going viral in different ways. Like, that seems to be a real shakeup right now in terms of like how marketing and how like social media and communities are affecting sales. So that's a really great point, yeah. Cool. And Per-Arne?
I think indies are here to stay. This has been the foundation of the industry, and it will be forever. I think that it's the engine of the industry. I've never seen any incumbent companies disrupt themselves. It's always innovators, small moving companies that disrupt. I don't think it's a trend. I think it's more of a risk averseness that we see right now, that people have stepped away from the bigger bets because they want to try. They want to still be part of the industry. There is no place and no other industry where you can have exponential return on a game for $1 million. If you place a $100 million bet into GTA 6, which eventually will come out in November next year, you will never get 100x on that. Never. But you can do it on the smaller projects. And I think that will keep going. And for me, this isn't a fluke. Every month since I started in the industry, there has been a game from an indie studio coming out from left field, investors and publishers saying, where the fuck did that come from? Well, it came from indies who have been working in a basement for 3 years, ramen financed, and delivering their game to the market. And I will keep going.
I love that. I think that's a really amazing part of the industry. I love the indie heart of games. Yeah, it's super important. Just while we have time, maybe we could do some questions.
But what it takes to make a good or popular game? Is the budget crucial?
So is the budget crucial? I feel like
I can start. It needs to match up with the type of game you're building. I think we've seen a lot of really small budget games really hit it big, and you know, I think the important thing is not to try and hit above your weight, because when you are kind of a small, kind of gritty indie studio and you put out a small gritty game, people forgive a lot of the kind of roughness around the edges. But when you come out and you try to present yourself as a AAA, everything gets noticed and everything gets criticized. And so know who you are, at what stage you are, and then kind of play within your means.
really seeing just that trend with all points here, right? Like really know what is the right fit or right size for team, for structure, for business model, for budget. Like I think that's been said a lot here. So being really self-aware as a team, it sounds like that's really a key learning here, right? Like,
I mean, like I was just saying, like Expedition 33 was like a really good example of, you know, compared to what they kind of came out with, they had a relatively modest budget, but they didn't try to position themselves as a AAA. And so if you talk to a lot of people on the game dev side, like they notice a lot of the roughness and there's a lot of stuff that like you could improve on. But the gamer audience took it in really well. And so it worked. Had they, I think, tried to position themselves as the next big RPG title, I think all of the roughness would have been pointed out and, you know, hammered in on. So just kind of know who you are.
But shortly commenting on Expedition 33, because everyone looks at the final effect, but no one looks actually at the data, which is there because I did actually an Excel sheet with that. So the first 2.5 years of the production were done for 800,000 euros with a team that bit by bit grew from like 3 people to 16 people, you know, at the time when Kepler signed it. So, you know, they already had something that was working, that could show the potential of the game, and only then it was scaled, you know, only then the outsource was added, and the cost of course, you know, were far bigger, but not that far, like the total cost was under 6 million. But, you know, half of the production and where the fun is, when the potential of the game is, was shown, you know, with quite a modest amount of money, and only then when they found it, you know, you could scale it. They didn't start with that.
Also depends on what kind of game you're building. I think that for me the budget is absolutely a non-issue. If you look at Are We There Yet from Friends at Nuggets, 8 weeks. The toying costs, of course, but it wasn't. I think that if you have a shoestring budget, you need to work with community from day one. I think Ilya or Greg said it earlier. Today, that is mandatory. And if you do that, then the audience will be forgiving to your game because they've been part of it. It's community-driven development. Then they see through the hatches and the mishaps of the game, as long as it's enticing, sticky, and fun.
Okay, thanks a lot.
thank you. Yeah.
There is one question is for the last. I'll keep for the last one. But next question is, how have the longer development cycles, like 7+ years even for indie games, changed the funding landscape?
This is, I'm also curious. I've worked on a few of these games.
You want me to go? Again, I think it kind of depends on who and where you are, because I think if you're Team Cherry, you are able to do whatever you want to do. If you're Larian, you're able to do whatever you want to do. If you are putting out your first game, 7 years is too long, not just because you can have the money, but that's not the issue. The market changes so much right now that by the time the game comes out, the audience you thought you were building for may not be there. And so when you are kind of playing within the market and it's your first time around, I think getting quick iterative cycles and kind of putting something out there and getting feedback is super important. And so, 7 years is too long. Are we there yet? I think was mentioned like 8 weeks. And there's a few games that are coming out like that. It's almost a new model where studios are building a big game and then in parallel they're building, smaller games to just kind of talk to their gamer base. So again, I think it matters who you are. There's a point to where when you grow up to be Larian, that you're able to empower your vision on the market. And then you can do what you want because, people will give you credit and they will wait. And, if you are Take-Two and you're building GTA, people will wait.
I think that's really great, but also kind of confirms also that the longer development games, those aren't going away either, right? It's not like one or the other. We'll still have those. But it has a lot to do with track record and credibility and experience, like you say. While we wait, last thing you've been playing?
Slay the Spire.
Slay the Spire, cool.
Escape from Dakov.
Nice, very nice.
Well, I played the Sudoku on the plane here from Easy. Right?
Cool. I'm hooked on Arc Raiders right now, so yeah. Anybody else Arc Raiders in the audience? Yeah, cool.
I'm waiting to get back, and my brother and I are supposed to co-op that.
Nice. Yeah, it's really well done.
Hello, thank you for the interesting talk. I just have one question regarding, let's say, the politics that we had, when a studio was choosing their path of foundings between VCs and publishers, let's say. And one thing that I recall from earlier, I think it was Per-Arne who was saying this, it was like for VCs, we're talking about the longer vision of the studios, let's say what is their overall perspective, what do we want to bring, and it's also spanning upon multiple game existence. And when we are talking about this, how does it work from a VC's perspective when you have a studio, a young studio, which is coming with a game, they have the vision maybe for 2 more, but we cannot know at the time what will be the, let's say, the expected reaction from the audience, how will the team hang? So how does the VC react in those cases? What are the, let's say, exit conditions that you can meet when those expectations are not met? How does it work in those cases?
I think there's a question for you.
Yeah. I think that any sane investor won't judge you by your extrapolations of a budget of the third game. It's more about the story that you're telling and what you're passionate about and what you want to achieve. And how that resonates with you as a leader or how you can fuel your team to be interesting for the long run. And then, of course, we want to invest for a longer run and some kind of perspective where I either have a buy and hold strategy, which means that I don't have any intention to sell. I want to earn money from your dividends from your company. Or I have a buy and sell perspective. I want to make money of the shares that I bought from you. But with that in mind, regardless of position, I also know that probably 5, at least in my case, 5 to 7 of them will crash. And that means that yes, I will buy into your vision and be excited about it, but I will of course also test what's the stability and the stamina of the studio in itself as it releases the first game. Are they on their path? Did the game deliver the production value and the story that you told? Is it sustainable? Can it generate cash? Or do I need another solid investment into the studio? So it is about the longer vision and the story you paint, and then your first proof point, that's the first game that I actually buy into. So it's a combination of team, vision, and first game.
And in such cases, since we were talking about Expedition 33, now they're capitalized on their success, and we see that they are investing much more through the Clair Obscur IP, let's say overall. now if we're talking about this long-term collaboration, what, and I mean it's a question for every one of you, what are you thinking, let's say, when we're talking about like a main IP which will have different games, or we're talking of game as a platform, or also all the huge hype about game as service, and we have seen all of those projects which is bolted in PlayStation. How do you react towards those options?
Maybe I could try to reframe just a bit. So as I understand what you're asking, it's how important is like the brand or IP building that might happen with the first
Yeah,
game
and let's say the
versus-
different model inside this, you know, how they want to build it.
Right,
basically.
versus building any kind of like platform or service long term.
I mean, having an idea for IP is nice to have, in my opinion, because you don't know if it will be of any worth. If you look at the data, actually, if from Focus, you know, is publishing from time to time, like the new IP versus old IP, it's 50-50 from the revenue perspective. So it's not like, you know, it's required. For me, you know, it's more of a stability of the vision, knowing what kind of games you want to make, because in a lot of cases, that's the first game, if you're doing the same genre, you know, can become the great hit, you know. It's the first game being a great hit, not necessarily. So, you know, for a VC, that's a longer game. But I can tell you maybe what anti-vision is. You know, like the worst case I've seen, that someone was pitching, okay, we're doing this game, but the next one will be completely different, but no one wants to fund it. So, you know, we're just doing this because we believe we can get money on the first one, and then we want to do the second
So
one. with
retaining no production value whatsoever
Yeah.
between two games. Yeah.
Hello, hello people. One more time in English, but I can do it. So I am George from Creative Anatoly Studio and Logic 7 CBDO. We make creatives, playables, trailers, and we search interesting projects to invest a lot of money for promotion. So my question is for you all about what is three most important things in starting making the game. Three things starting to, if we will do it at start, chance that the game will grow and will find more. Thank you.
Thanks.
I tried.
So I think the question we've got really is like, what are the three things to focus on? I'll give you guys a get out of jail free card. Mostly, I think, because some of the theme of the talk here, I think, has been that it's a bit of a balanced approach and considering a lot of options. But again, maybe if we could just wrap up with some, what would you focus on? Doesn't have to be three, but maybe whatever stands out for you from the talk, Ilya.
I think, I mean, we've talked about team for most of the conversation, so I'm going to avoid that one for now. But
Gotcha.
I think it's important to kind of, I call it like understand your reason for being. I think a lot of people talk about that, right? Do you have something that you found that people want, but that isn't there right now that you're trying to bring to the market? If you have a very crystal clear vision of which gamer wants to play your game for a very particular reason, I think you have a chance. There's a lot of other variables in play, but if you understand your audience, that audience is big enough, and you have something that isn't fulfilled for that audience right now, you have a reason for being, and so your game has purpose and a chance to exist. But again, there's a lot of other variables, but I think it's core. There's a lot of copycats out there that are coming out that want to ride the coattails of some successful game, and it works to a certain extent, but it's hard to see big studio vision out of that.
That's really great. Thank you. Greg?
So I'll shortly comment about the team, because that's number one, but not only when it comes to the competence itself, but also personalities. If, you know, I don't believe in teams where everyone agrees, you know, what let's say the captain says every time. So what I'm looking in the team is if there's some strong enough personalities to say no if he comes up with a stupid idea or something, you know, that would make the scope of the game, you know, just too big to be reasonable. Second thing, know a lot about the game. What do you want to do? Learn from other mistakes and show that to me. You know, it's like I want to see that you actually learn your lessons from other people's mistakes. And the third thing, show me that the research is proving that people want the game that you're doing. Because I hear far too often that the answer is, we're doing the game we want to play. You're not the target group, you know, you're making this game. You actually need to see if players want to do the game you're making, and you need to prove that to me as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't remember any of the questions, but I think that my send-off to you is, and this might sound harsh, a business needs to make money. That's the bottom line. And I think that that has gotten lost in several occasions, and it could be one of the few weak things in the indie scene, that it's perfectly fine to live on 700 euros per month just to be able to build your games. But that's not sustainable, and it's not a business model, and you won't get any funding for it. Meaning that you need to have business acumen in the studio, and you need to want to have money, because there is no conflict between money and artistic freedom. There is a big connection between them, because money creates freedom. That's my final point.
I love it. Thank you. Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining.